The scene opens in the college library on a rainy afternoon. Raindrops patter against the tall arched windows, and the occasional rumble of thunder creates a slightly eerie atmosphere. Rows of bookshelves stretch endlessly, their shadows forming intricate patterns on the wooden floor. Peter, George, Daisy, and Abby are seated around a large table piled with books and notes. The only sounds are the faint hum of the air conditioning and the rustling of pages. The story begins on a stormy afternoon in the college library. 4 friends, Peter, George, Daisy, and Abby, were trying to pass the time. But what began as an ordinary day would soon take a terrifying turn. Peter: "All right, who's taking my notes this time?" "George, is it you? Your handwriting is like a secret code." George: "Better than your chicken scratches, Peter. By the way, shouldn't you be looking for that book Professor Harris assigned?" Peter: Yeah, I'm on it. Finding anything in this library feels like a scavenger hunt. Wish me luck." Peter walks toward the towering shelves, scanning the rows for the book. As he searches, he hears a faint whisper. He stops and glances around, but sees no one. Shrugging it off, he continues. Suddenly, a book tumbles from the top shelf, hitting the floor with a loud thud. Peter: "What the—" He bends down to pick up the book and stares at the cover in disbelief. Peter: "Unbelievable. The exact book I needed. Did it just fall for me?" He returns to the table, placing the book down with a flourish. Peter: "Behold, the book chose me. Finding it here is like finding a needle in a haystack." Daisy: "More like the book didn't want to stay on that dusty shelf anymore." As Peter flips through the book, a folded piece of paper slides out, landing on the table. Daisy picks it up curiously. Daisy: "What's this? Some kind of note?" Peter: "Looks like a drawing. Wait, it's a cross. What do the words say?" The group examines the paper, noticing the cross divided into 4 quadrants, 2 labeled yes and 2 labeled no. George: "Hold up. This is Charlie Charlie. How did this end up here?" Peter: Charlie Charlie. Is that a person or—" George: "It's a game. You use pencils to ask questions, and they supposedly move to answer. People say it's a way to talk to spirits." Abby: "Seriously, George, spirits? That's just internet nonsense." Daisy: "But what if it's not? What if it actually works? Maybe we could try it." Their conversation is abruptly cut off by the stern librarian. Librarian: "This is a library, not a cafe. If you want to chatter, do it elsewhere." Daisy: "Sorry, ma'am, we'll leave now." As they leave, Daisy tucks the mysterious paper into her bag. Daisy: "I want to try this tonight. Who's in?" George: "Count me in. Someone's got to keep you from summoning demons." Peter: "Why not? I'm curious." Abby: "Fine, but if this gets weird, I'm out." The friends gather at Daisy's house later that night. The clock strikes 11 p.m. as they enter her living room. The lights are dim, and the sound of the rain outside creates an unsettling ambiance. Daisy has arranged snacks and drinks on the coffee table, but the group's focus is on the piece of paper and the pencils. George: "All right, let's get started. Daisy, do you have 2 pencils?" Daisy hands George the pencils. He carefully balances them in a cross shape over the paper. George: "Okay, here's the deal. Once we start, no matter what happens, we must not break the circle. Hold hands and stay connected. Got it?" The group forms a circle, holding hands. George takes a deep breath and begins. George: "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" The room is silent. The pencils remain still. George repeats the question louder. George: "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" The pencils don't move. Abby snickers, letting go of their hands. Abby: "This is ridiculous. I'm done." Daisy: "Abby, You can't just break the circle. Abby, relax. Nothing's happening. Watch. Charlie, Charlie, are you here? To everyone's shock, the top pencil twitches and slowly points to yes. The air grows cold and the candles flicker. George, Abby, sit down, now. Reluctantly, Abby rejoins the circle. Daisy hesitates before asking another question. Daisy, Charlie, Charlie, can you hear us? The pencil moves to yes. George's face pales, but he presses on. George, do you need our help? The pencil moves to number. The tension in the room thickens. Daisy, we should stop now. It doesn't need anything from us. George, we can't stop until it says goodbye. That's the rule. Without warning, Peter begins to convulse. His body contorts unnaturally, his head snapping back as his eyes roll into his skull. A guttural growl escapes his throat. Abby, panicking. What's happening to him? Stop this now. George, shouting, don't break the circle. Peter's eyes open, now completely white. A twisted smile spreads across his face. Peter, demonic voice. Abby, my love, I've returned. Did you miss me? Abby, terrified. No, this isn't real. You're not him. Peter begins to laugh maniacally, his body twisting further as the sound of bones snapping fills the room. Daisy, screaming. George, do something! The lights flicker violently. A shadowy figure appears in the corner of the room, watching them with glowing red eyes. George and Daisy break away from the circle and run to the nearby church. They pound on the doors, desperate for help. Finding the church empty, they grab holy crosses and a bottle of holy water before rushing back to Daisy's house. When they return, they find Peter and Abby in the storeroom. Both are twisted grotesquely, their eyes lifeless and white. The shadowy figure looms over them. George, whispering, we're too late. Daisy, sobbing, what have we done? Days later, Daisy finds her brother Steve's diary. The entries reveal how Abby and Peter had manipulated him, leading to his tragic death. Filled with guilt and rage, Daisy realizes that her desire for revenge had unleashed a force she couldn't control. Daisy, whispering to herself, I'm so sorry, Steve. I thought I could make it right, but I've made everything worse. The final scene shows Daisy standing at her brother's grave, holding the diary. The camera pans out, revealing the shadowy figure watching her from a distance. The storm outside intensifies, lightning illuminating the dark corners of Daisy's house. Daisy and George stand frozen in the doorway of the storeroom, staring at the horrifying sight of their friends, Peter and Abby, lifelessly slumped against the walls. The shadowy figure begins to shift, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. It steps closer, its glowing red eyes fixed on Daisy. Shadowy figure, in a deep, echoing voice. Foolish girl, you dared to awaken me. Your vengeance was sweet, but the price must be paid. Daisy, shaking, clutching the holy water. Who are you? Why are you doing this? Shadowy figure, I am what you summoned, what you desire. Vengeance always has its consequences. The figure raises a shadowy arm, and Daisy feels an invisible force choking her. She gasps for air, struggling against the entity's power. George, trembling but determined, steps forward. George, shouting, let her go. He hurls the holy water at the figure. As the water touches the shadow, it recoils, screeching in pain. The room fills with an ear-splitting wail as the shadow begins to dissolve, leaving behind a thick, suffocating mist. Daisy collapses to the ground, coughing and crying. Daisy, sobbing, this is my fault. I brought this upon us. George, kneeling beside her. We didn't know, Daisy. We didn't understand what we were playing with. But it's not over yet. We need to make this right. Daisy and George decide to destroy the cursed paper and end the torment once and for all. They gather the paper, the pencils, and the remnants of the game, taking them to the church. The storm rages on as they arrive, the wind howling through the empty streets. Inside the church, the atmosphere is calm but heavy with an unexplainable energy. The candles flicker as Daisy and George approach the altar. They place the paper and pencils on a silver plate and douse them with holy water. Daisy, Steve, if you're watching, please forgive me. I thought I was helping you, but I made everything worse. I'm so sorry. George strikes a match and lights the cursed paper. The flames burn unnaturally bright, casting eerie shadows on the church walls. As the paper disintegrates, the room fills with a deafening roar. The shadowy figure reappears, its form smaller and weaker, but still menacing. Shadowy figure, hissing. You think you can rid yourself of me so easily? Your guilt binds me to this world. Daisy, standing tall. No, my guilt ends here. You have no power over me anymore. She grabs the holy cross from around her neck and thrusts it toward the figure. A blinding light erupts from the cross, enveloping the shadow. It shrieks one last time before vanishing into nothingness. The storm outside abruptly stops, and an eerie silence fills the air. George breathing heavily. Is it over? Daisy nodding, tears streaming down her face. It's over. Steve is at peace now, and so are they. Days later, Daisy visits the graves of Peter, Abby, and her brother Steve. She places flowers on each grave, her heart heavy but resolute. George stands beside her, offering silent support. Daisy, vengeance consumed me, and I unleashed something far beyond my control. I lost my friends, my peace, and nearly my soul. But in the end, I learned that some wounds can't be healed with anger. They require acceptance and forgiveness. As Daisy walks away from the graves, the camera pans to the sky, where the sun is finally breaking through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the cemetery. The scene shifts to a quiet, dimly lit room. A photo of Daisy, George, Peter, and Abby, together at a happier time, sits on a desk. A soft instrumental plays in the background. This story reminds us of the dangers of playing with forces we don't understand. What starts as curiosity can lead to irreversible consequences. Let this be a lesson. Not everything is meant to be tampered with, and vengeance often leaves more destruction in its wake. The screen fades to black and text appears. Are you curious about the unknown? Or do you seek lessons in stories that stay with you forever? Join us for more gripping tales that inspire and caution. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for your dose of chilling stories and life lessons. Until next time, stay curious but cautious. And remember, some doors are better left unopened.